Welcome to Believing the Word with Pastor Dan Shunk. This program is an outpouring of the ministry going on at Calvary Chapel, Chambersburg in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Here's what's coming up in today's message.
He said, drink all of it in Matthew 27. You can't go halfway with Christ. You can't take part of the sacrifice. It doesn't work that way. You're in or you're out. Everything about Christianity screams you're in or you're out. There is no part, right? And this is the same thought. You are in or you're out. You can't be sojourning with Israel. Well, I kind of identify with Israel. No. You either identify with them or you don't.
There are a lot of people in our world who identify with Christianity. But if you ask them about certain beliefs or values, they may take a step back and say something along the lines of, I like Jesus, but I'm not sure about some things. This selective Christianity is not truly following Christ. As Pastor Dan will mention today, when you follow Jesus, it's all or nothing. You have to count the cost and be willing to face any criticism and persecution the world will throw at you. Now here's Pastor Dan in the book of Exodus chapter 12, as he continues his message, the story of redemption.
If somebody is not willing to identify with you, that they're part of your culture, your identity, your Israelite-ishness, if they're not going to subscribe to that, then they're considered a stranger, and they don't have a part in the Passover, okay? So verse 44, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when he has circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. Okay? So the point, the purpose, now they're thrust out. They've left. They have a mixed multitude of people from other countries with them. Okay? They're probably Midianites. There's probably Egyptians. And God's saying they cannot be a part of the Passover until they first identify with Israel. Identification with Israel has to happen before somebody is eligible to be a part of the Passover, right? Does it make any sense to celebrate something if you don't appreciate what you're celebrating? And that's what he's saying. A foreigner, a stranger, don't let them partake in your celebration if they're not a part of you. Then they don't fully understand the event. It's only meaningful if you first identify with the Israelis. Okay? You have to first identify. You don't necessarily have to have been there in Egypt when they were redeemed and brought out from their sin. But you have to identify with it. You have to say, yes, I know what that's like, that I was a sinner. I was a slave in bondage, and I've been redeemed. So I identify with you. And then you partake, just like they did. So identification happens before you're a part of these celebrations and rituals. Verse 46, in one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of your house, neither shall you break a bone thereof. Very significant. That was a part that he didn't tell us earlier. When he was describing this Passover lamb earlier, he didn't say that part. But now God says, don't break a bone of the Passover lamb. Verse 47, all the congregation of Israel shall keep this feast. And when a stranger is sojourning with you and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all of his males be circumcised. Again, identification. And then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn and unto the stranger that sojourns with you. Thus did all the children of Israel as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. And it came to pass that same day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. So he goes into great pains to say that if there's somebody here that's not an Israelite, they've not identified with you, they need to identify with you first. Then they are fit to have the sacrifice applied. So notice again that the lamb should not have any broken bones. You know what that speaks of? And of course, this is a prophecy that not a bone of Christ would be broken, right? Do you remember they were going to come up to the cross, baseball bats in hand, and they were going to break the legs, right? And they went to the first, broke his legs, hastened his death. Went to the second, broke his legs, hastened his death. They went to Christ. Don't have to break his legs. He's already dead. To fulfill this prophecy that not a bone of his would be broken. Now, why is that important? It speaks of the idea that you got all of Christ or nothing. You can't tear him into pieces. You can't say, oh, well, I'll take this part of the lamb, but this part, I don't really care for that. I like this part of Christianity, but this stuff, man, that's what this speaks of. You can't take part of the sacrifice. It's all or nothing. Do you remember when Jesus was taking the Passover meal and he was instituting communion and he broke the bread, right? And then he gave the cup of his blood and he said, drink all of it in Matthew 27. You can't go halfway with Christ. You can't take part of the sacrifice. It doesn't work that way. You're in or you're out. Everything about Christianity screams you're in or you're out. There is no part, right? And this is the same thought. You are in or you're out. You can't be sojourning with Israel. Well, I kind of identify with Israel. No. You either identify with them or you don't. All right, well, chapter 13 is, again, relatively short, and this really finishes off the whole Passover experience is finished off here. Because, first of all, chapter 11, God prophesied this Passover and this deliverance. And we look at it as a tale of God's deeds that we should praise him, okay? And then the Passover chapter 12, demonstrates the idea of it's the tradition of death that teaches us propitiation. Well, chapter 13 is now going to talk about the firstborn again, same subject. And it's going to show us that the Passover, it's a testimony of deliverance. A testimony meaning we have a story to tell. It's a testimony of deliverance, and it should teach us purity. It should teach us to live holy and live right and be ready. So let's look at this short chapter 13, same subject. Chapter 11, God sets up the Passover. Chapter 12 is the Passover. And then chapter 13 is the idea of now the firstborn of all of Israel belong to God because they deserve to die. God said every firstborn is going to die. That includes Israel. But he said, you know what? I won't take the firstborn now. You can have a lamb substitute take their place. But God still deserves the firstborn from Israel. So that's what this chapter is all about in chapter 13. The firstborn belong to the Lord. So let's fly right through this chapter as quick as we can. Chapter 13, verse 1. The Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, sanctify unto me all the firstborn. Sanctify, set apart. Moses, consider all the firstborn of every family set apart and separate, okay? Whatsoever openeth the matrix, openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both man and a beast, is mine. It belongs to me. And Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which you came out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. This day came ye out in the month of Abib. This day, that was verse 4, now verse 5. And it shall be when the Lord shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Hivites and the Jebusites and the termites, which he swore unto your fathers to give you a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and in the seventh day shall be a feast to the Lord. So he's repeating again, these are the things you will do and remember. Verse 7, unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee, neither shall be leaven seen with thee in all your quarters, anywhere in your house. In verse 8, and thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, this is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thy hand, and for a memorial between your eyes, that the Lord's law may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand has the Lord brought you out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this ordinance in his season from year to year. Every year, keep doing this. Keep doing this every year. But notice as this chapter opens up, he says, you're going to sanctify unto me the firstborn. Consider the firstborn of every family separate. Consider that belongs to me. God says, I'm going to allow you to keep the firstborn child in your family. You can keep them because you're doing the sacrifice of the Passover lamb every year. And it's that every year sacrifice of the Passover that God says, I will take that lamb in place of your firstborn son. Next year comes, you sacrifice the lamb. Okay, I'll take that lamb in place of your firstborn son. But every year, they got to sacrifice that lamb every year. It's because they now owe their firstborn to God year after year. Okay? This is going to be changed later, where God will change it and say, okay, you know what? Instead of the firstborn from every family belonging to me, God's going to change that and say, okay, it's no longer the firstborn from every family. Now it's just the tribe of Levi. I'm going to take them instead. So we'll deal with that later on as we get there. But it's going to be every year they need to remember this. What are they remembering? They're remembering a substitutionary exchange that brought them deliverance. That's the key here. That's what they have to pass down to their kids. Tell your kids that there was a substitute that was exchanged and took my place. That's the point of passing this story down. I deserve judgment, but there was a substitute that took my place. That's what they need to teach their kids. Let's finish this thing. Verse 11. And it shall be when the Lord shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Hittites and all them others, same place, as he swore unto you and to your fathers, and shall give it to you, that you shall set apart unto the Lord all that openeth the matrix, and every firstling that comes of the beast which you have. The males shall be the Lord's. And every firstling of the ass or donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you will not redeem it, then you shall break his neck. And all the firstborn of man among thy children you shall redeem. That means with a lamb. You need to do a sacrifice to redeem it. Verse 14, and it shall be when your son asks you in the time to come, saying, What is this? What are you doing? Why are you doing these sacrifices? That you shall say unto him, by strength of hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt from the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that the Lord slew all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and of beast. Therefore, because of this, I sacrifice to the Lord all that openeth the matrix, both males, but all the firstborn of the children I redeem by sacrificing a lamb. One more verse, verse 16. And it shall be for a token upon your hand and for your frontlets between your eyes, for by strength of hand the Lord brought us forth out of Egypt. So every year there's a remembrance of God substituting a lamb to take the place of the firstborn. And they do it again, and they do it again, and they do it again. So every year they have to remember, as the Passover is coming up, whoa, I owe my firstborn to God. Oh, but I get to do a substitutionary lamb. Okay, and now my firstborn lives. Okay, Passover's coming next year. I owe my firstborn to God. Oh, but I can do a substitutionary lamb. Right? And that's why it's such a precious thing that the sacrifice of Christ was once for all, and it is done. There's no more need of an offering. Look at verse 13 real quick, though. This is interesting. In verse 13, it said, every firstling of the ass or donkey shall be redeemed with a lamb, and if you will not redeem it, you should kill it. Do you get that? Don't miss it. Why? Because you owe it to God. The firstborn of every single thing, you have to give it to God every year. But they never did. Because they put something in its place. They did the sacrifice. They did the substitutionary lamb to take its place. But he's pointing out, look, if you don't do the substitute, then you have to kill it. Because you owe it to God. That's the whole thing. But when it got down to children, he specifically said that the children shall be redeemed. It doesn't say, redeem your children with a lamb or kill them. Let's be clear about that. All right. Like I said, everything God shadows is worthy. It's not corrupt. So God allows the sacrifice, and they did that every year. So when you think sacrifice in the Old Testament, one of the first words that should come to your mind when you think of the sacrifices is the word substitute. They were taking the place of the real thing. Okay? That's what they did. All right, now we really can finish it starting in verse 17. This is now the necessity. So they've talked about passing this down generation to generation. Now they're going to talk about this necessity to grow and experience. They got to experience God. They're a brand new nation. They don't know the Lord. They're Egyptians. Okay, yeah, they're born Israelites. They're Egyptian by culture, the way they walk, the way they talk, their appetite, everything about this subgroup that's calling themselves Israelites, they're Egyptians. That's their culture, okay? They need to develop a new culture. They need to develop a trust in God, and that's what we're going to see now, starting at verse 17. It came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they shall see war, and they return to Egypt. Let's finish this out and we'll talk about it. Okay, verse 18. But God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, which was a much longer way, right? And the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones away hence with you. That was verse 19. Let's pause for just a second. So, first of all, remember, these are slaves that have been a slave. They have been slaves in Egypt for all these years. These slaves are not ready for war. So God specifically says, I'm not going to take you the shortest route possible along the Mediterranean coast up by the Philistines. Because when you meet the Philistines, you're going to have to go to war to take over that land. You just got out of slavery. You still smell like Egyptians. You're not ready for this. You don't know me well enough. How do they need to get ready for war with the Philistines? What I'm about to say is going to be proved out over the next chapter and chapter and chapter and chapter and chapter. How do they get ready for war with the Philistines? They need to learn to trust God. They don't need to go exercise and build their muscles, learn archery. They need time to learn to trust God. Did they need muscles and archery to take over Jericho? No, they needed to trust God to let him fight the battle for them. They're not ready. They don't have a trust in God yet. These slaves are not ready for war with the Philistines. Look at this right here in Exodus chapter 23. This is coming up, right, in a little bit. By little and little I will drive them out. Talking about the Canaanites and all the people in the land that he's going to give them. By little and little, and the beasts of the land for that matter. By little and little I am going to drive them out from before you until you are increased and you inherit the land. In another place he says, I'm not just going to let you wipe out and conquer everything like that, lest the beasts of the field multiply against you. Do you ever think about why that's one of the reasons why God just doesn't let you excel? Like you go from nothing to just, I'm on top of the world. You know why? Because you can't handle it. Like I can't handle it, right? Look, I make 3 times the income right now that I did most of my life. I think about the curse that would have been had I made the money I make now 25 years ago. That would have been a curse. I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I would have blown it. I would have wasted it. And that's the same thought he's saying right here. He's saying there is a growth that has to happen. You still stink like Egyptians. You have no idea how to trust me. If I gave you all kinds of things right now, you wouldn't know what to do with it properly. You need to grow and let there be a process here. And that's what he's telling them in these verses. Proverbs chapter 30. This was at the top of my house budget for years and years. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 8 and 9 says, the proverb writer says, remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. When was the last time you prayed, don't give me riches, God? The proverb says, don't give me poverty nor riches, but just feed me with food convenient for me, lest I be poor and steal and take the name of the Lord in vain, or lest I be rich and deny thee and say, who is God? So he had the wisdom to say, don't make me distracted with poverty. Don't make me distracted with riches, but just keep me in that place where I just depend on you daily, Lord. That's what this is. That's what he says right here when he says, I can't take you straight into the land right now. You still stink like Egyptians. You don't identify with me yet. You need to get ready to fight the Egyptians by trusting in me. He's going to get them ready for that. Okay? Verse 20. And they took their journey from Succoth and encamped in Etham in the edge of the wilderness. Good luck finding these on a map. You can't. Don't worry about it. And in verse 21, and the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people, day after day. Now, I want to come back. There's the last thought. I want to come back to something I said a minute ago. They've just gone through an amazing special event in Egypt. I'm emphasizing the word event. Many of us have gone through amazing spiritual events. There was a conference, there was a speaker, there was a person, there was a thing. And it was like, wow, Lord, that's awesome. Okay, that's an event, that's a good thing. In this case, it's an establishing thing for them, and it's establishing their first steps. But guess what, guys? Your events with the Lord are only part of it. It needs to now convert into a lifestyle, into a culture, into a habit, into an identity, into a routine of who you are. And that's what this is saying. He's going to now lead them by a pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day. Day after day, he wants to guide them and direct them. God needs to teach them daily dependence on him. Special events need to become daily dependence. That almost rhymes. Special events need to become daily dependence, right? That's what he's looking for. It's not, a special event is a good start, but it needs to continue to change until it's a daily dependence that they recognize. Listen, he's going to tell them later on, Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2 and 3. He said, and you shall remember all the ways that the Lord your God led you these 40 years in the wilderness. And then he tells them why he did it. To humble you and to prove you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would serve and keep his commandments or no. And he humbled you, and he suffered you hunger, and he fed you with manna, which you didn't know about, neither did your fathers know about. Why? That he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Why didn't he take them straight up by the Philistines? Why did he lead them through the desert, and it took 40 years? To teach them, to grow them, to show them they don't have what it takes. They need to learn dependence on him. They need to know that they were bought with a price. And being bought with a price, that should drive dependency from them. It should drive purity from them. To say, I don't own myself anymore. The Lord now owns me. He just redeemed me out of Egypt. I don't own myself anymore. He bought me with a price. So knowing that we depend on God for our very direction, our very food and supply, it should just drive us to say, okay, God, whatever you want, whatever you want.
You've been listening to Believing the Word with Pastor Dan Shunk. Today we've been in the book of Exodus, and so many fascinating and also strange things are happening in this book of the Bible. There were so many plagues that were inflicted on the Egyptian people, land, and animals. Did these things get their attention? Certainly. But did these hardships compel Pharaoh to change his heart toward the Israelites? Certainly not. In fact, his heart became harder and harder as time went on. Don't let this be the case for you. If God's getting your attention in some way through circumstances affecting you, Resist that urge to harden your heart toward God. Try to see what He's doing in your life or the lives of others, and be willing to see past the current struggles and notice that God just wants your softened heart to rely on Him through it. If today's teaching is prompting you to listen to more messages in this series, we invite you to check them out at cchambersburg.org. Under the Media tab, you'll find an archive of our messages, or you can easily download our app to stay connected from anywhere. If you'd like to join us in person this weekend, you can do that by coming to our new expanded location at 5121 Coffee Avenue in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Service times and directions can be found on our website, cchambersburg.org. Thanks for being with us today. There's sure to be more good insights like what was shared today next time. Put a marker in Exodus and join us then. This has been Believing the Word with Pastor Dan Shunk.